The most dangerous person is not who you think. You ever felt a chill? Not from the air, but from a person. They're smiling, they're polite, everything looks fine on the surface, but something underneath isn't right. Carl Jung, one of the sharpest minds in psychology to ever walk this earth, he noticed something most people miss. He said the real danger doesn't shout, doesn't scream, it whispers, and the body knows it. Long before the mind does. It's not in loud words or angry fists. No, it's in the quiet, the subtle, the space between the smile and what it hides. And that's the kind of danger that's hardest to see and hardest to escape. Have you ever met someone who seemed polished, thoughtful, even gracious, but something about them didn't sit right? They weren't loud, they weren't mean, they weren't visibly broken, and yet the feeling was there, that itch in your gut, that whisper in your bones. What if the real danger doesn't wear rage on its face? What if it wears a smile? Jung believed the most dangerous kind of person isn't the one who shows their flaws. It's the one who hides them, even from themselves. The one who's convinced they're only good, only kind, only righteous. Sigmund Freud, his mentor turned rival, saw danger too, but he looked at it through another lens. He said, when we bury parts of ourselves, especially the messy, emotional, impulsive parts, those parts don't disappear. They leak out, in distortion, in obsession, in silence that screams louder than words. Freud would say that feeling you get around someone, that chill that hits you out of nowhere, that's your unconscious picking up what theirs is trying to hide. So let's ask the question, what really makes a person dangerous? It's not volume, it's not attitude, it's blindness. A person unaware of their own shadow, they're unpredictable, because when you don't know what's driving you, you can't steer, and that's when people crash. But the buried don't stay buried, they fester, they mold the air we breathe. Freud called this repression. Jung said what we repress doesn't just sit there, it acts. In dreams, in addictions, in relationships that fall apart and we say, I don't know why I did that. You ever said that? That was your shadow talking. And here's where it gets dangerous. When you never face your own shadow, you start projecting it. You blame others. You judge others. You point the finger, when really it should point inward. It's easier to say they're manipulative than to admit you want control. Easier to say they're selfish than to face your own unmet needs. Jung called projection the devil's trick, because it makes you fight enemies that only exist inside you. Freud saw it too. Only he saw it show up in symptoms, OCD, panic, shame you can't explain. That's the mind rebelling against what the soul won't confront. And maybe the scariest part, the most dangerous people often look the most composed. Calm on the outside, volcano on the inside, they're polite, noble, selfless. But underneath, resentment, jealousy, repressed desire, shame so heavy it bends their back, and one day, it leaks. Sarcasm, passive aggression, sudden outbursts, and people say, that's so out of character. But it wasn't, it was the rest of the character, finally breaking free. Now here's the twist. The most dangerous person is not the one who has a shadow. It's the one who denies they have one. The one who insists, I'm always good. I'm never angry. I only want what's best. Jung called that moral inflation, a dangerous illusion of goodness. These are the folks who lied to spare feelings, control for your own good, judge in the name of love. Freud had a name for this too, reaction formation. It's when someone feels envy but acts excessively generous, feels shame but acts aggressively proud, feels desire but preaches purity. It looks virtuous, but it's repression, wearing a halo. So how do we stay safe? Not just from others, but from ourselves. Jung believed in integration, not defeating the shadow, not ignoring it, but bringing it into the light, with honesty, with compassion. I am capable of jealousy. I am capable of harm. I am capable of self-righteousness. Freud's method? Psychoanalysis, long conversations, deep exploration, tracing your symptoms back to your source. Because when the unconscious becomes conscious, healing begins. Let's go deeper. Why do people chase the good person image so hard? Because somewhere they learned love is conditional, approval requires performance, virtue means safety, so they play the part, not to manipulate, but to survive. Problem is, the mask hardens, and the real self, the whole self, gets locked behind it. Jung warned, the longer you deny a part of yourself, the more likely you are to be controlled by it. He didn't just see this as a personal issue, he saw it as cultural. Look at the moral panics, the witch hunts, the public shaming. That's a society projecting its unexamined shadow onto others. Freud called it the return of the repressed. What we bury, we eventually spew out. So what's the real work? Simple, not easy. Own what's yours. Bring back the parts you exiled, not to become perfect, but to become whole, because wholeness is the antidote to danger. If someone tells you they're always honest, always kind, always fair, be careful. Real honesty admits when it lies. Real kindness owns its cruelty. Real fairness faces its prejudice. The more someone insists on their purity, the more likely they're being led by a shadow they refuse to see. But the people who face their darkness, the ones who say, I've felt that, I've done that, I've had to sit in that pain, they're safer. Because they're real. They don't perform light. They wrestle with darkness. And when they speak, it lands, because it's rooted. And when they hold space for others, it heals, because they've held space for themselves. So the next time someone makes you uneasy, don't just look at their behavior. Feel into the absence. What's missing? Vulnerability, self-awareness, the ability to say, I'm struggling. Those absences speak, sometimes louder than words. And if you're doing this work, this hard, honest, soul-stretching work, I see you. Keep going. It's not about being perfect. It's about being in process, being whole. If this gave you a new lens, if it helped you see others or yourself more clearly, share it, reflect, stay curious. And if you want to keep exploring the depths, the unconscious, the hidden, the shadow and the gold, subscribe, stay close. Now hear me on this. The most dangerous person is not always the loudest in the room. It's not the one you argue with. It's the one who thinks they're always right. The one who never apologizes, never reflects, never sees the damage they cause. Because in their mind, they've never done anything wrong. And that kind of mindset, it doesn't just hurt you, it infects everything around you. So be careful who you give access to your life. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your peace. Protect yourself. Set your boundaries like steel gates, and understand this. You're not cold for walking away. You're not cruel for protecting your spirit. At the end of the day, your growth will offend those who refuse to grow. Let it. Keep rising, keep learning, and above all, keep your integrity intact. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself, and don't ever be afraid to get distance from someone who thinks they're always right.